Hi everyone, if this is your first time watching one of these videos, thank you for joining me today. And if you have been following along with this video series, welcome back to another IELTS preparation video. I'm Joanne, and today I'm going to talk to you about the speaking section of the IELTS exam. Today I will focus on part 1 of the exam, and our topic is culture and society. As I have said in previous videos, the speaking exam lasts roughly 15 minutes and is split into 3 parts: the interview section, the individual long-term section, and the two-way discussion section. Remember to check out the other videos in this series for more information on the exam itself, marking criteria, exam tips and useful phrases, as well as example questions and model answers. Part 1 of the exam is the interview section. This section lasts roughly 5 minutes. In this part of the exam, the examiner asks the candidate general questions on some familiar topics, for example, food and health. As I mentioned, our topic today is culture and society. This part of the test focuses on the candidate's ability to communicate opinions and information on everyday topics and common experiences or situations by answering a range of questions. Let's take a look at some vocabulary that will help you talk about culture and society. These pairings, called collocations, sound natural to native speakers, even though other words could be used. Can you match the beginning to the end? I suggest you pause the video here to make a note of your answers. Let's check the answers. First, we have cultural heritage. Secondly, we have outstanding natural beauty. And finally, we have World Heritage Site. How many did you get right? I suggest trying to create some sentences with the new vocabulary in them. Remember to share your answers in the comments. Let's take a look at some more vocabulary. Your task is the same as before. Try to match the words to create the collocations. So, your words are: number 1, annual; number 2, a lot of; number 3, historical. I suggest that you pause the video now to make a note of your answers. Here are the answers. Number 1, annual festival. Number 2, a lot of rituals. Number 3, historical significance. Have you seen any of these before? I suggest pausing the video now to make a note of any you got wrong or found difficult. Now, let's take a look at our first example question for today. Your question is, what is an important festival in your country? And the example answer is, an important festival in my country is New Year. I think it is the most important one because most people return to their hometown to see their families. We often visit the graves of our ancestors to pray too. That's a solid and 6th answer. As I mentioned in previous videos, one of the marking criteria is lexical resource, or the candidate's vocabulary and how well they use it. So, considering this idea, how do you think we could improve our answer? Here you can see the marking criteria for a Band 7 answer. As you can see, you can make some inappropriate choices, but you should be able to use vocabulary flexibly and use some less common and idiomatic vocabulary. You can find all of the marking criteria on the IELTS website, so I'll share a link to that in the comments. Let's take another look at the question. Remember, the question is, what is an important festival in your country? As you can see, I changed think to would say, and I added in it's great. Remember, don't use words just because you think they are difficult. Only use them if you can use them correctly. Let's take a look at our second question for today. And the question is, What festival is most important to you personally? And the example answer is, to me personally, the most important festival is New Year. I live quite far away from my family, so I always look forward to going back to see them. Also, my mother makes some very tasty New Year dishes. New Year reminds me of happy times when I was a child. Considering the idea of lexical resource, what do you think we could do in order to improve this answer? Remember, the question was, what festival is most important to you personally? As you can see, I added in don't get to see my family as much as I would like to because and I added in is a great cook and she. Let's take a look at the third question for today. So the question is, are traditional festivals as important as they used to be in your country? And the example answer is, I'm not exactly sure, but I think they probably are at least equally important. Maybe they're even more important, because companies advertise their products around the time of festivals. This means that children in particular become very excited about upcoming festivals. So, how do you think we could improve this answer? Remember, the question was, are traditional festivals as important as they used to be in your country? As you can see, I added to be honest at the start of the answer, and I also added in this creates a great deal of awareness. What changes did you think of making? Remember to share your ideas in the comments section. Let's take a look at our fourth and final question for today. So, our question is, are any modern or foreign festivals gaining popularity? And the sample answer is, I think Halloween is gaining popularity in my country. When I was a child, we didn't know much about it, and nobody celebrated it, at least in my hometown. These days, Halloween parties have become quite common among children and adults, and pubs and restaurants have Halloween-themed events. So, considering lexical resource, what do you think we could do to improve this answer? Remember, the question was, are modern or foreign festivals gaining popularity? As you can see, I changed didn't know much about it to were not familiar with it. And I added in which are quite fun to the end of the answer. So what ideas did you come up with? Here are all the questions from today's video. First we had, what is an important festival in your country? Then we went through, what festival is most important to you personally? And then we moved on to, are traditional festivals as important as they used to be in your country? And finally, we looked at, are any modern or foreign festivals gaining popularity? I suggest that you make a note of these questions so that you can practice them at home. Remember to record your answers and check your answers against the marking criteria and have a think about what you can do to improve your answers. Today, we are focusing on part 2 of the exam, the individual long turn. This section lasts around 4 minutes. In this section, the examiner gives you a task card that instructs you to speak on a particular topic. It suggests different points to cover and gives you one area to explain. You are given 1 minute to plan, and then you are expected to speak for up to 2 minutes. The marking criteria that I will focus on in this video is fluency and coherence. So, what is fluency and coherence? Well, This refers to how good the candidate is at talking at the right speed and how good they are at connecting their ideas together. The candidate needs to be able to understand and follow the rules of language at a word, sentence, and text level. Here you can see the marking criteria for a Band 7 answer for fluency and coherence. As I have said in previous videos, a Band 7 score is referred to as a good user. So, as you can see, you are allowed to hesitate, repeat, or self-correct at times. But you should be able to speak at length without loss of coherence. Remember, the link to the marking criteria will be in the comment section. Now, let's take a closer look at what happens in Part 2 of the exam. As I said, Part 2 is the individual long-term section. In this section of the exam, the examiner gives the candidate a task card, which asks the candidate to talk about a particular topic. The task card includes points to cover and instructs the candidate to explain one aspect of the topic. Candidates are given 1 minute to prepare their talk and are given a pencil and a piece of paper to make notes. As this part of the test focuses on the candidate's ability to speak at length on a given topic, it is likely that the candidate will need to draw on his or her own experience to complete the long term. It can be tempting to make up an answer on the spot that you think will sound good, but I don't recommend making something up as it may be difficult to keep your answer coherent. When we are discussing particular examples of general ideas such as culture, cultural heritage, the national character, or society, we have to be careful with our choice of words and grammar. Now, I want you to make 3 sentences using a part of, a pillar of, and an aspect of. I suggest that you pause the video now to try to create your sentences. Remember, share your ideas in the comment section or with your teacher. So, now let's take a look at 3 example sentences. The first sentence is, rituals are an important part of Japanese society. The second sentence is, irony is a pillar of British culture. The third sentence is, a commitment to harmony is an interesting aspect of Japanese society. So, what were your ideas? Now, it's time to look at our example question for the day. So, our example question is, imagine I am a foreigner who plans to visit your country and wants to know about some important customs and manners. You should tell me what are the most important things to know, how I should behave in your country, how I should not behave in your country, and explain why those things are important. Remember, you get 1 minute to plan your answer. The planning section is very important, especially when research shows that 12% of candidates think about nothing during this time. So, I suggest writing 1 or 2 words per bullet point. Then, when you are speaking, move your hand down as you cover each point. This will help to ensure that you cover all of your points. Remember, your 2 minutes of speaking starts after your 1 minute of planning ends. So I could start by saying, that's a really interesting question. If you were a foreigner planning on visiting my country, I would say that the most important thing is to be respectful and tolerant of other people around you. I would then move on to the second bullet point and I would say, you should behave in a polite and friendly manner. There are a lot of outdoor activities that you can do if you visit Scotland. If you are out walking in nature during your trip, don't be surprised if people that pass you say hello or smile. This is very normal and you should try to do the same back. I would then move on to the third bullet point and say, in general, people are quite relaxed and forgiving of faux pas. However, I have noticed that some tourists like to refer to people as Scotch. This is incorrect and some people may be taken aback, so I would suggest trying to avoid it. I would then move on to the fourth bullet point and say, I would say these things that I have mentioned are important in Scotland because people strive to try and create a welcoming and inclusive atmosphere. To create this, everyone has to work together and be respectful of each other. Now that you have covered all 4 of your bullet points, you can speak on the topic for around 2 minutes. Remember, this is the long-term section of the exam, so you do want to talk for around 2 minutes. If I still had some time left, I could also say, in general, I would say that Scotland is a friendly place for tourists to visit. People do take manners quite seriously and as such do not like it when people cut in line. I would say people are friendly, so don't be surprised if people say hello to you when they are walking in the park. Now it's your turn. If you haven't already, please get a pencil and some paper, and also your phone or a timer, and get ready to plan your answer. So, your question is, tell me about a foreign culture that you like. You should say what culture it is and how you know about it, what differences there are between that culture and your own, what do you like about that foreign culture, and explain why you picked this foreign culture. Remember, you have 1 minute to prepare. As I said, I suggest that you write 1 or 2 words per bullet point. Pause the video here and set a timer for 1 minute so that you can plan your answer. When you are practicing saying your answer, don't forget to move your hand down as you cover each point. This will help to ensure that you cover all of your points. Let's take another look at the question. Remember, your question is, tell me about a foreign culture that you like. You should say what culture it is and how you know about it, what differences there are between that culture and your own, what you like about that foreign culture, and explain why you picked this foreign culture. Remember, when you have completed your 1 minute of planning, set another timer for 2 minutes so that you can practice saying your answer. When you are practicing your answer, I suggest recording it and then playing it back. When you're playing back your answer, check it against the marking criteria and think about what you could do to improve your answer next time. Think about if you were self-correcting a lot, or were you hesitating often? In today's video, I'll be talking about part 3 of the speaking exam, which is the two-way discussion. This section lasts roughly 5 minutes. In this section, you are required to speak on the topic from part 2 of the exam in a more general and abstract way. I will be focusing on 2 different marking criteria today. The first one I will look at is grammatical range and accuracy. So, what is it? Well, it refers to the candidate's ability to use a range of structures and how well they use them. As well as the rules of language, this criteria considers the communicative functions of speech. Here you can see the marking criteria for grammatical range and accuracy for a Band 7 answer. As I have mentioned in previous videos, a Band 7 is referred to as a good user. So you are still able to make some grammatical errors, but you should be able to use a range of complex structures with some flexibility, and you should frequently produce error-free sentences. Remember, when you are practicing at home, try to check your answers against the marking criteria and think about what you could do to improve your answer next time. You'll be able to find a link to all of the marking criteria in the comments section. Keeping in mind the marking criteria we just looked at, here's our first sample question for today. So, the question is, does globalization threaten national cultures? So, what kind of grammar structures do you think we could use in our answer? When I read that question, some grammar structures come to mind. For example, adverbs of certainty, such as probably. What were your ideas? Remember to share your ideas in the comment section or with your teacher. Here's a model answer with those suggested grammar points highlighted. Remember, the question was, does globalization threaten national cultures? And the sample answer is, that's a really interesting question. I think threaten is a very provocative word. In my personal opinion, globalization doesn't inherently threaten national cultures. However, it probably will be an influencing factor in how they evolve. I think with this topic, it is definitely important to remember that national cultures have always changed and evolved, and that change is natural and certainly isn't bad. So, what idea have you got for your answer? Let's take a look at another question. This time the question is, are all traditions worth keeping? Should we get rid of any traditions? So, considering the marking criteria, what grammar points could we include in our answer? Remember, our question is, are all traditions worth keeping? Should we get rid of any traditions? As you can see, I suggested adverbs of certainty and modals. What did you suggest? Remember to share your ideas in the comments. Here's a model answer with the different grammar points highlighted. Remember, the question was, are all traditions worth keeping? Should we get rid of any traditions? And the sample answer is, traditions are important aspects of a country's culture and are meaningful to many people. In order to preserve different aspects of a country's culture, they should be preserved. However, if we had negative traditions, we would have to get rid of them. It is important to remember that throughout history, cultures have definitely changed, and what is tradition now would have been new at some point. So, we should only keep traditions that are representative of how we want our culture to be going forward. That doesn't inherently mean some traditions must be erased and forgotten, just probably acknowledged and left in the past. So, how did you think about answering that question? Now let's take a look at the second marking criteria that I'll be talking about in this lesson. So, another skill that the examiner is assessing is how well the candidate pronounces the language. As well as the communicative effect of the candidate's pronunciation, there is an evaluation of how much strain it causes a listener and how noticeable their accent is. Although the accent itself is not a problem, candidates need to be able to produce the phonological features of speech. Many of you watching this video will be aiming for a Band 7 score. Here you can see the marking criteria for pronunciation for a Band 7 answer. As I have mentioned in previous videos, a Band 7 is referred to as a good user. As such, you can mispronounce some individual words or sounds that reduce clarity at times, but You must be able to use a range of pronunciation features and be generally understood. Now let's take a look at another example question and its model answer. This time we will be paying special attention to pronunciation. So, our question is national pride a good or bad thing? So, our answer is, that's a really interesting question. I don't think it is as straightforward as it seems, but instead I believe it is rather nuanced, as it has the potential to be good or bad depending on how it is carried out. If it is just pride in your own country, I do not think it is a bad thing. However, if that pride comes with believing you are better than other people who are from different countries, or hatred of other people as a result of your own pride, it can create detrimental and potentially dangerous situations. So, we've got some tricky words in this answer. I recommend breaking those words down into their syllables and then practicing them so that you can become more confident with them and pronounce them without much effort. As you can see, I have broken down some of the more challenging words. Firstly, we have nuanced. Then we have potential. Then we have detrimental. And finally, we have potentially. So, if any of those words are still hard for you, just make a note of them so that you can repeat them several more times until they feel more natural. Remember, you can always check the pronunciation of a word by Googling it if you're unsure. Now it is time for the tip of the day. So, your tip is try to avoid overusing fillers. Fillers in English are words like er, and like. These words and sounds stop the flow of your speech, so should be avoided. When you are listening to recordings of your answers, watch out for these words.